Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful day here in central Ontario, Canada. I'm out here taking full advantage of it. I think we're somewhere around 15 degrees Celsius today, which I haven't said an awful lot in the last several months. Now, funny thing is, despite it being double digits in the positive this time around, we still have snow floating around. You can see this is a nice sunny slope here, but we still have snow there. And if we get in even deeper, there's actually snow deeper in the woods on the ground. So hopefully before tomorrow, if the temperatures stay up there, that'll head out of here. But one of the downsides with that is the clock then starts ticking before black flies kick off. The bugs are going to be out, and they're going to make me, they're going to make me earn all the work that I do out here, because if you know anything about black flies in this part of the world, they will pretty much carry you away. Another nice reason to have a cab on the tractor. But what we're doing today is we're going around. I'm going to pick up some of the logs that I've cut up just to get access to my trails. And then what we'll do is we'll skid them back towards my sawmill. And that way in a future day we can get them cut up. Now if you have a look out this way, this trail provides a decent vantage point for some of the destruction on this side of the forest. And that destruction is pretty expansive. If you have a look, it goes from right all the way to left. And that way quite a ways. Now this is the good part. The bad part is up that way further. But for today, we'll take what we've got, and that's good weather. Now, what I'm going to tell you about before we get underway here today is how I'm going to be skidding the logs. If you've been around the channel before, you might have seen this before, but it's still relatively new to me. This is a Forestry Grapple. This company here is out of Quebec, Canada. Woody equipment. What they designed here basically is a 3-point hitch attachment, and then there's a grapple on here. Now this grapple, I think it's 52 inches as an opening. You can see it's pretty big here, but I think they have different grapple size openings. Don't quote me on that. My model here, I opted not only for the hydraulic open and close, but I wanted to get a 360 degree rotation. And so I have to have 2 hydraulic connections in order for both those functions to work. And so if we make our way back here, I've got my rear remotes that come stock. And then these set of rear remotes are actually hooked up to that hose, or hoses. And those hoses go all the way around the front of the tractor. Here they are. And they plug into the hydraulic connections, which are part of my third function kit on my joystick, loader joystick. And so if you can imagine, I'm sitting inside the tractor cab. If I reach down below the joystick, I have the rear remotes lever. And if I put my hand back on the joystick, I have 2 buttons for what typically would be a grapple opening and close. And so that's pretty handy for me. It allows me to have 2 hydraulic functions at the back, even though my tractor didn't come with it. And if you look right here, here's the buttons I'm talking about. Okay. And then here's my rear remote lever. Now this right here, I installed this when I put the Lane Shark on the tractor. And so the good thing about that Lane Shark third function kit, not only does it have the spot for the Lane Shark, it also has these 2 hydraulic connections, which will run a grapple as well. So with that said, let's get this thing into action here. There's a few logs down here. We'll skid out, and then we'll probably just drive down some of the other trails that I've opened up, see what we can grab, and then we'll get them over to the sawmill, and that way we have some logs ready to mill. Here we go. Well, it's easy to get discouraged out here because I look at a pile like this, which I thought I was doing pretty good with, and then I look up and I notice that this is nothing more than a drop in the bucket, but I got to get used to that because even this swath here is relatively small compared to what's beyond it. And then if I turn the camera around, there's even more of it where we just were. And so I'm going to be doing this for quite some time, so I better get used to it. I'm not complaining though. I really enjoy using the Forestry Grapple. It keeps me in the tractor seat, and assuming I can back up to the log and the grapple will reach it, I can get it out of the woods and maneuver it. Now you probably didn't see me doing it on camera, but what I was doing was actually guiding the log at times, especially let's say the log was sort of in that direction and I wanted to move it this way. I'll back up and grab onto it, but if I don't want to damage the tree when I'm turning the corner, what I can do is I can actually use that rotator and I can put just a little bit of pressure on it this way, and so as I'm going this way, the log wants to follow me as opposed to grinding against the inside tree. And so I was doing that periodically with that thing. Now even if you don't have that, this thing will actually it'll center, so it'll follow the center line of the tractor by nature, and so you don't have to worry about maneuvering the rotator. If you don't want to, it'll find its way right behind the machine as it is. Your tractor might be like mine, where my 3-point hitch levers, I can actually tighten these knobs here, and that'll limit how high I can raise the 3-point hitch. I use that so that I make sure that I don't contact the implement with the fender, and it also gives me just a very quick pull right to the max, and it lifts it as high as it needs to. You may have seen me take a few logs, and after I grabbed a hold of it, I tucked the front of the log underneath that serrated edge there, and by lifting with the grapple under that serrated edge, it lifts the far end of the log up, keeps it out of the dirt. In a perfect world, I'd be out here skidding in the winter, but obviously that didn't happen this year. We ended up having this ice storm hit, knock down all these trees right at the end of winter, and because I've got such a volume of red pines to take care of, I'm going to be skidding for years to come. And the unfortunate part for me, the clock is about ticking now for bugs to start boring into these trees, and so there will be some loss here, at least for saw logs. I can go ahead and use what I can't use for saw logs for firewood, and so we're going to try to make as little loss as possible, but there will be some. And one more thing I've seen people do by tucking the front of logs under the serrated edge and lifting is that it gets the log off the ground, and then they can buck the log to length, or they could cut it into firewood rounds. Well, I think that's going to do it for me here today. I certainly will never have any shortage of work after this big ice storm. I didn't exactly want the cards I was dealt, but when you're dealt them, you better start playing them, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. It is one massive job out there as I look around, but I'm very fortunate that I have equipment like this to use, and I'm very fortunate I still feel limber and I feel good every day, and so I'm going to keep doing what I do, coming back out here, looking for the positive. Even if the glass looks like it's got a hole in it, I'll try to keep filling that glass up. If you did like this video, make sure you give it the old like-a-roo. Don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully I see you next time. See you then.